First of all, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I am Joe Feldman. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for UBDS. So we're going to take you through simplifying the FOI requests, as you know. But let me kick off straight away. So in terms of the team that will be presenting today, I'm not going to introduce them all. You can see them on the screen. They'll introduce themselves as we get to it. But it is a mixture of UBDS and obviously Microsoft. Just to set the scene, really, how we got here. So UBDS are a Microsoft expert, digital transformation business, really focused in the public sector, as you can see there from some of the logos that we work with, but a particular focus on local regional government. So we got here with this app. How do we do that? We had a hackathon up in the Northwest. We invited a whole host of local authorities. We set up a workshop, an ideation-led workshop. We captured a load of requirements, which was very, very interactive. So this app was effectively designed by those local authorities. We had a team of devs working like maniacs in the background, listening to all of the feedback that they were getting, and they were deving the application or building the application in real time. So the application that you'll see today, I would say we built in a day, but I know that there was a couple of bits that we did cheat a little bit at the start, and I'm sure they'll admit to that. But we did build the majority of the application in a day with the team, and then we presented that back. So without further ado, I will pass over to my colleague Andrew from Microsoft.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk through that sort of wider program that this is brilliantly forming part of. So at Microsoft, we've got the Innovate Together program. If you can go on to the next slide, please. So the Innovate Together program is basically three things, and this is at the moment it's focused on local and regional government, but it is expanding out rapidly to the other areas of public sector. So we've got three main bits. There's change agents and training, and if you click the link on that you can see there with change agents on, that'll take you to a blog post about the importance of change agents. And we've got a training course coming up in June to support people with that. The crux of it, though, is we've got a GitHub repository, which is a digital space for sharing of assets. And this app is one of the ones that's going to be shared on the UBDS GitHub repository, but we're going to link to it from an app catalog. And the app catalog is growing every day, actually. I looked at it this morning. There's 2 apps that I hadn't seen before. And these are apps that public sector bodies have either built themselves and have added to it, or apps that they've built with partners such as UBDS and they've been added to it, or apps that have been built by Microsoft. But the point is that public sector is paying for these solutions across the industry and across the globe, and these should be reused for public sector. And that's what we're enabling with this. And there's a new app catalog coming very, very soon with a lot more features to enable people to collaborate. And the last bit, we've got a ton of communities to help people to work together. So we can train people how to use these technologies. We can give you a place to share, and we've got communities for you to all to work together. What I do want to mention about this app is a brilliant app. It's really important to note that the FOI solution, the really great approach with this, and this is what a lot of public sector bodies have done, is where they have frequent FOI requests. So I used to manage an IT department in a council. I used to get a lot of requests for, say, how much are you printing? How many mobile phones have you got? How many staff have you got? These were requests we got all the time. So we ended up creating a load of Power BI dashboards that sat on the website. And then if anyone wanted to self-serve, we didn't have to answer the FOI, because if they could self-service, they could just do that themselves. With this app, you'd be able to ask the question, and if it already exists, it could point you towards the self-service Power BI dashboards. It's really important to know that in the context of channel shift, moving people away from asking the same questions all the time, this is a really great enabler for this. But this will enable people to manage the FOIs more formally. So thank you to the UBDS team. This is a brilliant app. And if you've got any questions about the Innovate Together program, please contact me. I'm Andrew Boxall, the Account Technology Strategist at Microsoft. Thank you. It's over to John now.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so as Joe said, it's the application itself was born out of discussions with local councils on what are their sort of biggest challenges, what could they see us building to help improve their processes, and obviously one of the main ones that came out was information request pressures. So growing concerns around FOI, funding cuts, Workforce shortages, increased demand just means mounting pressure on local governments. Number of FOI requests has been increasing and almost doubled in the past 10 years. There's ambiguity over ownership. Getting the right people to provide the right information is often a challenge. And the information governance teams often have to manually pick up the request, find the resources, send the emails, send the chasers to get that response, which is all time consuming, and a lot of it is done manually. And staff struggle to effectively communicate. Often you'll need multiple people to contribute towards the one request. So it's getting those right people to contribute effectively to create a good response to that request. So we want to streamline the way that we can share that information with citizens. So our solution wanted to, firstly, introduce self-service, so help that burden of reducing the number of requests being made in the first place if it's already been answered in the past. Consolidate all that information and the tasks into a single unified platform where an admin can see what requests are open, what the status is, who's answered, what they're still waiting on, and the timelines, and when it's coming up to those regulatory, so the end of the sort of timeline where it needs to have a response. And increase efficiency and reduce administrative burden. So again, just making it easier, introducing automation to help the administrators complete those tasks. And again, giving greater transparency to citizens. So publishing those requests and making them publicly available and easier to find for citizens that want to ask those questions. So we built the FOI app, as Joe said. It was built mostly in a day. We did do a little bit of legwork beforehand, getting it sort of set up in the bare bones, but a lot of the sort of the main requirements were gathered in the day and built specific to those local councils. So the application itself provides answers up front to citizens based on previous requests. So it is all built using sort of Microsoft Power Platform products. The front end of it is built with, I won't linger on that one, I'll pop over to. The front end of it is built on Power Pages, which exposes data from Dataverse with Power Apps Canvas app used to manage the actual requests in the background. Power Automate Flows provide all the automation behind the actual processes to send approvals, reminders. And we have an AI model to help determine what that request is about in the first place. Oftentimes the request is quite vague as to what it is, but we use an AI model to help determine what that request is about, so it can help the administrators route that to correct people. And finally, we've got a virtual agent chatbot, which is surfaced on the Power Pages site, which the citizens can then use to ask questions about previous requests in natural language, and the chatbot can respond to those. So a bit about the solution architecture. As I mentioned, the front end is hosted on Power Pages, which hosts a submission form, and it also is able to display any previous public requests. So submitting users can A, submit their requests on that form, and B, get those previous submitted requests back to view those. The next part is the FOI management app. This would be mostly used by information governance officers or whoever looks after the administration of those requests. As I say, we use the AI builder to categorize the requests that are coming in. Requests can then be input from other users within the org, and we can break the requests into manageable queries. So we can break them down into several different questions for them to be answered. And then once they're complete, we can approve and publish those directly from the app to the website in a single click. And the SMEs, they will provide responses via Power Automate. So they'll receive a request notification through, integrated within Teams. So they will get a notification within Teams that they've got a request to respond to, and they can then contribute that FOI request. And future customizations, as I say, is an app that does the job, but there are other enhancements that could be possible for the future. Further integration with Teams. So if you wanted to, say, spin up a collaborative Teams channel just for each individual request so that everyone can work together in the same Teams channel to then contribute to that. And that's something we could look to enhance and build into future enhancements. Building MI reporting, so integrating Power BI, creating a dashboard to see the volume of requests and building relevant reports for business stakeholders. And system integration. So if you want to connect to other systems, HR systems, payroll systems, finance, to pull that data automatically so that you've got it in one place, we can build custom connectors to do that work for you as well. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Henry to give you a demonstration of the app itself.
Thanks, John. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so I hope everyone can see this okay. So I know because we've got quite a few technical people in the audience, I will touch on this a bit more than I usually would, but basically all of the elements that John spoke to are bundled up in a Power Platform solution. So we can see here that the kind of parts that make up the whole, we've got the AI model that was spoken about, which is just a simple category classification model. So you can just give it phrases and basically say, if you see these phrases, I want to determine the relevant service as adult social care, which is the example we'll use in the demo. We've got the Power Apps Canvas app. So this is the app that the employees within the government body that deal with FOI requests would use. We've got the chatbot, as we've said, which I'll briefly touch on in a moment. And then we've just got the essentially the Dataverse tables, and then some Power Automate cloud flows that handle some of the automation. So that's kind of just to show you all of these parts kind of make the whole solution. So if we step into it, so I'll start off as if I'm coming into this as a member of public that wants to make a request. So in an ideal world, what we're striving towards is that there's a, if this request has already been made, let's cut that request off without the request even being made, and add into the workload, the already ever increasing workload of the council employee. So we've got kind of two ways that we could do this. We could make use of the Power Virtual Agent chatbot. So just for the sake of this demo, it's quite simple, but I'm just going to put in adult social care as if I wanted to make a request about adult social care. And then it's going to come back with me, kind of interact and say, which service is this regarding? So I'll say adult social care. And then it's going to give me a link that's going to take me to cases. And ultimately, you would probably pre-filter that as well to just show you cases that are relating to adult social care. So that's probably as far as I'll go with the chatbot. So it'll come, was this a great experience? It's worth calling out these additional options. Obviously, it's only as good as the feedback given, but this can help you kind of have a continuous loop of improving the chatbot. So you can see, did it respond well in this instance? No, it didn't. We need to change it. Or yes, it did. That's great. So we'll leave that there. Equally, if I click on cases across the top, this is going to give me all cases previously made. For the sake of this demo, it just gives you some high-level metadata about each request, but in reality, you would probably have an additional layer of approval, as I appreciate that sometimes when you respond to a member of the public, you can't necessarily just give them the whole of a document. You might have to redact or only give them certain things that are suitable. So you probably have a layer of approval. It comes back here, and then it can be consumed by any member of the public that wants to make a future request, with the ideal being that they don't have to make that request in the first place. But let's say I haven't found anything to fulfill my request, so I'm basically going to make a new request. So here I am going to very purposefully put in the word adult social care, and you'll see why as we move on to another stage. So I'll just put adult social care FOI demo request, just so I can easily identify it, and then we'll move on. So a lot of this is probably similar to existing forms that councils may have on their various government sites, but this bit here is where we've tried to change the journey a little bit. And what I mean by that is because when it comes to the query itself, you would normally be presented with just a single text box that they could basically just write War and Peace up to a certain character limit, and then the onus is on the employee to then kind of go, well, actually that bit needs to go to this service and that bit needs to go to that service. So that can, you know, it can start off time consuming before you've even got the relevant bits to send to a department to fulfill the request. So the idea is that we can kind of break it out into chunks. Again, the member of public is going to do what the member of public is going to do, but we can try and guide them down the right path. But you will see that we can manipulate this ourselves within the Power App. But I'll just, for the sake of this demo, do query 1. We can see we've got query 1, and I'm just going to do another query just to show that you can do one or many. And then not only can we do one or many queries that make up the kind of sum total of the request, we can also add supporting documents. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to add my supporting document 1 and 2, and then I'm going to click next. Again, the next few questions are taken from kind of the requirements gathering, so pretty standard questions. How does the member of public want to get this back? All of this is, you know, easily changeable. It's just kind of what it is at the moment, but it doesn't have to stay this way. I'm just going to leave that as is, and then I'm just going to be really lazy and do FN for first name, LN for last name, put in a fictitious email address, same for the phone number, and then submit. So that's kind of job done as far as the member of public is concerned. Now we're going to step into, well, okay, how does, you know, the relevant department within the council, you know, be notified that said request has been made? So here we've basically incorporated Teams into the mix, primarily because for the most part people will be making use of Teams as part of their day job, and it just kind of minimizes the need to have another application open, so they can kind of be in the context of, you know, where they might spend the bulk of their working day, but easily be notified that a new request has been made and it needs to be actioned. But above and beyond that, not only are they getting the notification that the request has been made, they can use the benefit of Microsoft Teams, so they can, you know, collaborate around this specific requests, you know, mention relevant people against it, and build out a kind of communication history around the request. And that can help with things like if a certain, you know, person that was dealing with the request goes off sick, it's not going to be too hard a task for someone else to pick up, because they'll have that full history of conversation around it. So, you know, once you're in Teams, yes, we've got the request, but you can just, you know, benefit from Teams in general. So this is just a team that we called FOI. You would have all the people that deal with FOI requests as members, and it's just a Power Automate flow that places an adaptive card in a given channel and then gives you a link that will take you to the request itself. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to click on View. So whilst you could go into this app independently, this is going to not only take you into the app, but it's going to take you into the specific request within the app. So again, just trying to make it as simple as possible. So just to show that, if I was to step back to home, we can see we've got our 102. We can search the text within these requests. We can search based on reference numbers. We can search on all the metadata, basically. So if we come back into the request, which is the point at which clicking on View of the adaptive card did, here we can see where the AI model has kicked in. So it is somewhat a very basic model, but the idea would be that you would improve upon it over time, and hopefully it would get to a point where you could pretty much, you know, really say with confidence it's going to predict the right service. But equally, that's not always going to be the case. We're not being rigid here. We're just trying to give a good starter for 10. So we could always add in other services, remove the current recommended service, and so on. And then we would just click update. If we move along, it's kind of broken out in the navigation on the left, so we can see the documents that the end users submitted. If I can add new documents that might be received internally that I need to help facilitate this request. So if I just quickly do this now, and then click OK, you'll see here that we've got the new document added And there's just a little distinction here, so we can see this one was done via the kind of public portal, and this was done from the Freedom Power Apps Canvas app. What you might ultimately want to do, just to call out some kind of future enhancements, you could have a preview of the document on the right, but equally we've got a link here that will just open up the document. If we move into queries, we'll see our query 1 and query 2. And as we start to get responses to these queries that are ultimately going to give us the answers to facilitate the request, we can kind of click into the context because it's very contextual, and then we get the option to add a response to that specific query. So here I'll just put response 1 to query 1, and for some reason my fingers seem to have swollen today. Do that, and then if we do just another one, I'll do response 2 to query 1. And you can see the difference between having query 1 selected, we see the responses to query 1. Select query 2, we don't see any responses because we've not added the responses to that yet. So that's all well and good. Obviously, in an ideal world, the member of public would have broken this out beautifully, and this is sufficient. But more likely to be the case is that, you know, we're going to have to either maybe replace one of these queries with a more suitable one, assign it to a department. So if I want to do that, I'll just put in query 1 made internally. And then for this query, I need to assign it to, so for the sake of the demo, I'm going to explicitly do it to myself, but you would, if you imagine, this would be to someone in the given department that needs to facilitate the request. So I'll click OK. And then because I now have somebody assigned to this, I'll be able to do some additional tasks such as seek approval. The idea being that you would want to get all of the queries that make up the request into an approved yes status, at which point that's where you might want to implement the final approval that will make it say, yeah, it's fit for public consumption, and this can help head off future requests of the same nature. So I'm going to click on approve, and this is just going to use, again, a Power Automate Cloudflow, and it's going to use the out-of-the-box approvals action, which gives us the benefit that it integrates nicely with Teams. So again, we can come back into Teams. I can see I've got a new activity here. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to say looks good, which probably makes no sense in this context, but just to show you can add comments. Again, it's the out-of-the-box approval mechanism, so you can use all of the functionality that you need to. And then ultimately, we're looking for approval. So in this instance, as I said, I'm going to click on approve. We would have also got an email notification as well, so it'll be quite vocal about it. Come back into the approved. If we come back into the app, we give it a refresh, we'll see that we've now got a status of approved. Above and beyond that, what we might want to do is to ensure that these are responded to in a timely fashion, particularly because the process does have an SLA to it, is here I'm going to say I want to chase the person this is assigned to. In reality, you would probably have that automated and not manually instigated, but you know, built roughly in a day. That's how it is at the moment. So if we look to what that's done at the moment, chasing will send an email to the person it's assigned to and kind of give them, you know, an indicative day based on the SLA, how long they've got to respond. Just to show this point a bit further, if I come back to a request that wasn't made today, so if I come to home, clear that search, let's go for this one. And if I come into queries, select a query that has somebody assigned to it. And if I do chase, and this one you'll see says due in 13 days. And that's just a calculated column within a Dataverse table. So again, you pre-configured it, you don't have to worry. It will determine the number of days remaining. And the idea being that, well, I suppose we're trying to scare the person a little bit. into making sure that they respond. So that, if I just come back to the app, and then responses doesn't really do anything at the moment, but the idea here is that this could be an area where you would kind of show the sum total of responses, not necessarily just the responses in the context of the individual queries.
And as if by magic, we're not going to just leave you with one app. And the reason being, we wanted to take the opportunity. We've been getting a load of requests for expense claim application, and we did a very similar exercise actually with the UK-based police forces, where we created an app in a day. We had about 40 people in the room, so it was a much bigger event, and we did the ideation-led workshop. And we built an expense claim application that you can see there. And I'm not going to read through it unless you want to, John, because we've got a bit of time. Do you want to quickly cover that off?
Yeah, sure. So, so some of the key features included in the app were creating a mobile-friendly way for people to upload their expense claims and have approval processes behind that as well, to go to the managers, for the managers then to log on and approve. Some stuff that was included in that was AI receipt processing. So instead of having to put in each line item of your expense, you could take a photo of your receipt. The AI builder could then process the line items on the receipt and then break that claim down for you into individual items. An interactive map of mileage, or sorry, your route, so to help you claim mileage. Oftentimes we found people were moving to, say, Google Maps, working out the route from there, getting the mileage, going back to the original application, inputting it, so taking them out of the workflow. Whereas with our new application, they could simply put in 2 addresses or 2 postcodes, and it would give them the route using Bing Maps integration. And the other one was using ChatGPT to have a conversational questions on what you can claim expenses for. What we found was the police forces had a lot of different policy documents that they had to sort of read through, and you weren't sure about what they could claim and what they couldn't claim for. So building in that AI capability to query those documents and then produce responses in a natural way and a natural language back to the user was something that was quite interesting. And yeah, that's about it. As I say, this was another one that we built for part of a hackathon. So there's a number of different ways that we could expand and integrate that into different systems if needed. And that's about it. Pass you back to Joe.
Thanks, John. So all that's left to do is thank you all for turning up. A really great turnout. I guess that's testament to the application. We really look forward to speaking with you all. Any questions, please do get in touch. You've got the email address there. So thank you very much.